Welcome back. We hope you're enjoying your time at the Vet Summit so far and have been able to put some of what you've learned so far into your plans or goals for the future. Now, when it comes to hiring veterans, we know that it's a singular part of your job, and that oftentimes that job also includes a lot of things that pull your attention and keep you running. But if you're serious about hiring from the post military community, or really just dealing with humans in general, there are a few things that just by understanding and acknowledging can have a huge impact of your influence on the man or woman sitting in front of you. And one of those things is understanding the concept of transition and change and what it means at a fundamental human level. To walk you through this, we found one of the best minds on change and how we can bring humanity back to the workplace, Scott Hicks. Scott is a visionary leader and founder of Lost Consulting, specializing in transition coaching for organizations, teams, and individuals. With more than 15 years of leadership and talent development experience in the pharmaceutical industry, she's known for designing impactful leadership programs that change organizations for the better and provide real results. And we're honored to have her here today. Scott, thank you for joining us here. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Jordana, and thank you for having me and for joining this afternoon. Hope everybody's had a great meeting so far. Just for a quick check, I want to make sure everybody can hear me because I am in presenter mode. So if someone could come off mute and just confirm that you can hear me. Well, and Jordana, are you there?
I am. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Very good. Okay. So I'm excited to talk with you all about transitions in general. So obviously the focus of your meeting is on specifically the vet and hiring and working with vets through transitions. But I'm going to start off in more of a broader scope of transitions in general. And then we'll kind of funnel it down into more of the military aspect. But in the end, I am going to kind of walk through some concepts and construct and a common language around transitions. And ultimately, it's about creating a mindset shift about transitions in general. And then hopefully in the end, as we funnel this through, we'll get to a place where we can open it up for discussion to share ideas and best practices on how you guys are navigating transitions in this ever-changing world. So it's obviously goes without saying that the only thing constant in today's world is change. And if we have to adapt or we're going to get left behind. Some of the statistics around transitions in general, it's pretty eye-opening when you think about it, because even outside of the workplace, just from a human perspective, we actually go through every 12 to 18 months some form of disruption or transition in our life. And then about 3 to 5 times within our lifetime, we will enter what we call a life quake. And a life quake is when multiple transitions happen at one time. So similar to an earthquake, it can be quite shattering and very difficult to navigate. But all this said, basically one half of our adult life we spend in transitions. And so when we think about that at work, and then outside of work in life, it's definitely something we need to be cognizant of and really just kind of shifting our mindset again around bringing that awareness and normalizing this as a new way of living, because this is the way life works now. So with that, I want to, first of all, kind of just to get us in, speaking of the mindset, we all are human, right? And you're in human resources, you take care of people within your organizations and your focus is on people. And but right now I want you to kind of think about yourself and think about transitions that you have been through or changes that you have experienced. And in the chat, if you would just think about, how do you typically respond? Like, what's your first instinct? Some people want to fix it fast. So this response reflects the need for immediate action and control in the face of change. Others want to just avoid it completely and just want to withdraw from the change and then just try to seek the status quo. Whereas others, and this is me, myself, is in the overthinking bucket. And so what I do and others who tend to overthink is they tend to get caught up in the analysis paralysis and overthinking the implications of change. And then some can, embrace it and actually love it. And there is a part of me actually that does enjoy it once I accept it and overthink it to the point of acceptance. So you can obviously be multiple of these. So just trying to get us in our own minds as we go through this content to realize that yes, we're talking about vets and we're talking about work in general and transitions in general, but that we all face transitions at some point in our life. But the problem is as humans, what we tend to do is resist change, right? And there's several reasons for that. It could be because of we feel there's a loss of control. It may really threaten that sense of control and trigger some form of a defensive response. Some feel it's an identity shift and it requires us to really redefine who we are, leading to anxiety about the new self and what things will look like. The ambiguity of it, just the unknown, the uncertainty, the unpredictability nature that change can create, that leaves us uncomfortable, right? And craving for that stability of what was known in the past. And then obviously there's the emotional aspect, the fatigue that can come with constant change and overwhelm just our emotional resources that can lead to burnout and resistance. So at the end of the day, we do resist change, but what really is happening if we think about what's happening in our brain when we're changing is our brains are designed to protect us. Our brains are designed to look for patterns so that we can repeat patterns. So I'm going to share a video with you to kind of bring this to life and help us kind of get in that mindset to continue our conversation. So here we go.
Your brain is designed to protect you. Every second, it scans for patterns from your past to predict and prepare for the future. This pattern recognition kept your ancestors alive, spotting the rustling grass that meant danger. Today, it's still working hard to keep you safe. But here's the thing. Patterns that served you in the past may not serve you anymore. Imagine, you receive a critical email from your boss. Instantly, your heart races, your chest tightens, and you fire back a defensive response. What just happened? You didn't choose that reaction. It was automatic. Let's explore why. This is the human experience cycle. Experiences create beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves about what things mean based on past experiences. These beliefs generate thousands of thoughts per day, 95% operating below your awareness. Thoughts trigger emotions, physical responses signaling that something is wrong. Emotions not recognized that are based on a past experience can drive actions that create the same experiences, which reinforce your original beliefs. Your brain uses this cycle to recognize patterns and protect you. We try and change our behavior or action to create new experiences. The reason that does not work is because we must change the belief running in the background of our mind first, or our brain will continue to seek evidence to support that story. Let's go deeper. That critical email triggered a belief formed long ago. Maybe criticism means I'm in danger, or I must defend myself to survive. This belief may have served you as a child, keeping you safe, but your brain is still using it today. It instantly generated thoughts. I'm being attacked. I need to protect myself. These thoughts created emotions, anxiety, anger, defensiveness, flooding your body with stress chemicals. Those emotions drove your action, the defensive reply. Now here's the crucial part. Your defensive response might create tension with your boss, which your brain files as evidence confirming your original belief. This is confirmation bias, your brain seeking patterns that match what it already believes. It's doing its job, keeping you safe by reinforcing familiar patterns, even when those patterns no longer serve you. The breakthrough happens in the space of grace, a pause between trigger and response. Sometimes you'll catch yourself in the moment, taking a breath before you react, choosing a different response. But more often, awareness comes through reflection after you've already acted. Both are valuable. Both create the possibility for change. We can't change or control other people, only ourselves, which starts by understanding ourselves and our beliefs. Here's how reflection works. In your space of grace, use the 5 R's. First, reflect. I sent a defensive email. Second, remember. Work the human experience cycle backwards. I felt threatened. I thought I was being attacked. I believe criticism means danger. See the pattern? Third, release. That belief served me in the past. It kept me safe as a child, but it doesn't serve me anymore. Fourth, restore. I'll apologize for my defensive tone. Fifth, rewrite. Create a new belief. Feedback is information, not an attack. I can stay calm and curious. Belief. Now, when the next critical email arrives, your brain has new data, a new pattern. You might still feel the old reaction, but awareness gives you choice. Over time, new beliefs create new automatic responses. The cycle that trapped you becomes the cycle that frees you. Your brain's pattern recognition protected you then and protects you now. Conscious awareness empowers you to choose which patterns still serve you. Between trigger and response, or in reflection afterwards, lies your power. Pause, reflect, rewrite. Honor what served you in the past and choose what serves you now.
Okay, so I know that video is, we can actually take that and go a whole different route around limiting beliefs, but my intention on sharing that is just to demonstrate how the brain is working and how it is constantly seeking those patterns, which is what actually makes transitions so difficult, because we do like our comfort zone. We do like, getting, not having the uncertainty. And so to break or disrupt those patterns is a huge part of managing and leading through and coaching through transitions. So I love this quote by Wayne Dyer. It says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this really gets to kind of the core concept in this discussion around transitions today. It all starts with that mindset. And it's in the mindset where it's how we change in the way that we look at things. And Carol Dweck did a lot of work around growth mindset. If you've never read her book, Mindset, I highly recommend it. I think it's a pretty hot topic now, and I'm pretty sure most of you probably in HR have heard of this by now. But at the end of the day, to change behaviors, we have to change beliefs. And if we don't change beliefs and those old beliefs are running in the background and we're seeking that old way of doing things or old way of thinking and believing, it's really hard to change our behaviors. And so in a fixed mindset, it's basically wanting to stay in the past and wanting to find that pattern and seeking that pattern. But in a growth mindset, it's all about becoming a lifelong learner and learning how that the brain actually has neuroplasticity, and the brain is a muscle, and it changes when we use it, and we actually can rewire it. Our identity oftentimes leads to like the thinking of who we are is who we must remain, but and that's in a fixed mindset. But in a growth mindset, is what got me here will not get me there. And in today's world that's constantly changing in every way possible, having that growth mindset and really taking transitions and rethinking the way we think about transitions is very key. And another big thing, and you see this all over the slide, is redefining failure. I think oftentimes, especially in the workplace, we look at failure as, it's a limit of our abilities, or it's going to make me look bad, or I have to conform to perform and try to make sure that I don't fail and I have to do things perfect. But really, it's more about seeking improvement and not perfection. And failure is actually just feedback. It's not our identity. It's how we learn and grow. And so the last thing I'll say about Carol Dweck's work that I love is the power of not yet. And basically what she says is, instead of saying I can't do something, it's saying I can't do something yet. And so that just keeps that open mind and it keeps us in that growth mindset to continue learning, evolving, and ultimately transitioning, which we all do at a different rate because we're human and we're complex. But the key here is maintaining that growth mindset. Now, up to this point, I've used the word change and transition interchangeably, but really there's a difference, and I think defining those differences here is important as we continue to kind of create that common language around transition, and then how do we help others navigate through transition. First of all, change is more, if you think of change as being external and transition being more internal. So change, if you think about weather, we can't change or we can't control the weather, right? I mean, it would be great if we could, but we can't. It's something that happens externally that we cannot control. It's that event that's happening around us, and it's something that may happen to us. Whereas a transition is more internal, and it's something that we can control, because the only thing we really can control is how we respond to that. And so if you think of change again as something that happens to people, whereas transition is something that happens within people, and the transition being more of the psychological process of adapting, and it's more emotional, cognitive, and meaning focused. And again, everybody transitions differently because we are human and very complex. So that kind of gets us to your role as HR professionals in the workplace, whether it's with vets or anyone going through transitions, whether it's like a structural change, which I know happens often, a new leader coming in, layoffs, a new policy. Those again are changes external. Really, once it happens, there's not much we can do about it. But how do you as HR professionals create that culture of transition and coaching through that transition, so that it becomes more about the mindset and identity shift, and providing that emotional support to help people navigate the transitions individually, because again, we're all different. And I'll just say this too, if you think about, I was in training for years and I've led a lot of different workshops. I've participated in a lot of different trainings, but I want to get back to one of the key concepts of the growth mindset. And that is, when you can't change behaviors until you change beliefs, right? So oftentimes we'll go through great trainings and we're all pumped up about it. And then it kind of falls by the wayside, or we file it away, or we put it on a shelf and it collects dust. And that's because we haven't changed the underlying belief behind the behavior that we're trying to change. And then also, when traditional change management programs, I know, have been very popular, more top down, but that's the reason those oftentimes don't work is because it's more of a blanket approach, thinking that everyone adapts to change the same, and that it is more of an external thing. Whereas in fact, when it comes to transition, again, it is more internal. So basically, there's a human side of transition, and it goes beyond just the logistical changes. It again emphasizes the emotional and psychological aspects, where individuals must navigate the grieving process of letting go of old and creating the space for new. So it's a more people-centric approach that recognizes that people do need to mourn, they're going to adapt differently. And again, it requires that coaching and support rather than that top-down approach. So with that, we'll go into the anatomy of transition. And so there's basically 3 stages of a transition. You've got the ending, the messy middle, and then the new beginning. And I don't know if I'm aging myself, but the song Closing Time by The Cure is actually a very philosophical song. And my favorite line in that song is, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And so the key here is, when something is ending, obviously it puts us into a little bit of a discomfort, but more of a grieving process. And like I said earlier, it really is so important to allow individuals to mourn the loss so that they can let it go, and to create space for new, going into the messy middle, which is where the old no longer fits and the new may not be clear. And so for you guys, helping to normalize that uncertainty so that it can allow for that growth and transformation, and ultimately the new beginning, where the energy returns, the confidence rebuilds, and purpose starts to reemerge. It would be nice if this was a linear approach and we could, really just kind of walk through these steps and name them. But because we are human, oftentimes what I find when I'm coaching people is that they start the new beginning and they get excited about it, but then they kind of backtrack and realize they hadn't really let go of that old belief or that old way of doing things, so to speak. And so backtracking back to the ending to ensure again that you let go to create space for that new will allow the new to emerge, much easier. But the part I want to anchor on really is that messy middle. The messy middle is probably the longest, and again, it's messy. And the metaphor I like to use is if you think about the transition from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So you're leaving, the caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar and enters that chrysalis stage where there literally is a transformation. And I won't go into the gory details of what actually happens inside of that chrysalis, but there's literally a breakdown. And so I like to say you break down to break through and just allow the normalization and allow that messiness to and create the space and grace, I should say, to allow it to be messy as it transforms. Oops, sorry. So, as it transforms or as the individual transforms or transitions through that. The last thing I'll say about the messy middle is I think this is where getting back to failure becomes really important, because oftentimes people think especially in work, we want to perform. We have a very performance driven mindset and we want to perform quickly, but allowing again that space and that grace to learn and to even fail. I like to say fail forward, learn fast is, I think, so important during the messy middle, and having that common language around these stages to let people see and understand that it is part of the growth process. It is part of the learning process. And that is a growth mindset in the end. Okay, so now I'm going to just kind of highlight some transition as it relates to workspace and also in the military. Okay, so bear with me for just a second, but the top two boxes are the current situation we have in the workplace. And both, if you think about both the bottom two are the military. If you think about both the workplace traditionally as well as the military, it's always sort of been that top-down command and control mindset in the past. But I want to talk a little bit about how the military has made the transition in response to the changes, whereas most companies have not. So let's take the workplace, for example. And I'm talking in a large scale bucket. I know a lot of organizations have done work in making the transition to all the different changes that are occurring. So I'm not pinpointing, any one particular organization. This is just kind of a broad view. But basically in the workplace, how things have changed is that obviously we've moved from hybrid work to remote work. We've shifted less from supervising or managing to coaching. There's constant disruption, AI being one of many, but technology in general. Purpose and values are becoming more important, specifically to the younger generations. So you obviously have that generational mix and diverse teams, and just digital overload. I mean, overload of, means of communicating with email. And, I know when I was in corporate America, I can remember I would answer an email and I felt like I would get 10 more, and it was hard to manage that inbox. So it's constant communication. But what we're seeing in the workplace in terms of what Gallup has shown in their employee engagement studies is that only 23 to 33% of employees are engaged. And disengagement, there's a lot of hidden cost in disengagement, and globally, the impact of that is $8 trillion in the impact on the GDP. And managers are driving 70% of the disengagement, but they are also engagement issues, and they are also so overwhelmed and overworked. And that's impacting the disengagement of those that are under them. Well-being is central to performance, and burnout and turnover is rising. And so in the end, there are hidden costs in terms of profitability, absenteeism, turnover, productivity. There's a lot of hidden costs that oftentimes companies are not measuring. But again, it's kind of living in that old school mindset still of command and control when things are changing. Now let's contrast that to the situation we have in the military. So the military also has changed over time, and less about the command and control, this more hybrid, nonlinear, networked wars. You've got cyber and information domains that have been added. There's a faster tempo and constant surprise. There's more joint coalition, cross-agency operations, and the shift from need to know to a broader intel sharing. And as a result of that, what I call team of teams result is they've gone more from machine and more to a networked operation. There's a shared consciousness and empowered execution, from siloed excellence to more system adaptability. There's trust and radical internal transparency. And leaders serve as gardeners, not chess masters. And continuous learning is a core competency. And a lot of these things come from a book that I've read that I also highly recommend if you haven't read it. It's called The Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal, and it's New Rules of Engagement for a Complex World. And it talks about his time in Afghanistan and the importance of really empowering and trusting those on the front lines to make decisions. Obviously, you have to have the right people in the right roles, but in doing so, you can have faster, more flexible decision making, and working together as a team actually pays off in the end. And at the end of the day, the mindset shift that we see in the military and the lessons that we've learned around teamwork and leadership are two things. It's leadership over management and trust over control. So the mindset shift of leadership to management is that you manage process, but you lead people. You need both. Obviously, you want to manage process, but true leadership is focused on people and unlocking potential in people, so that when in a team, the diversity within that team, when put together, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And then trust over control. It's less about, again, that top-down command and control, but engaging, enabling, and empowering people in a culture of trust can drive more engagement. We talked about the statistics around the lack of engagement in corporate America now, but driving that engagement, which will impact the hidden costs that often aren't measured in terms of things like productivity, profitability, absenteeism, turnover, etc. A couple of quotes that I really like is, and Simon Sinek and again, General Stanley McChrystal have done a lot of work around this. And Simon's quote is this: in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that they may gain. And then General Stanley McChrystal says, our competitors and disruptors behave like networks. If our teams behave like isolated units instead of a network of trust, we lose, which I think both are very powerful concepts to consider. And another thing that Simon Sinek says is, in a true brotherhood, rank means you're responsible for people and more important than people. And I think that's a key point here as well. And so I'm kind of flipping the switch here just a little bit before we dive into the vet side of things, but flipping the script in real-time mindset shift is when we look at, when we look at things differently and how things have changed, we change how we see things. And so suddenly it becomes clear why, one of the reasons why, I know there's multiple reasons why shifting from, military service for vets back into the civilian world. But if you think about it, coming from this more teaming mindset to more of a command and control kind of makes you wonder, like, is this part of the reason why it's difficult for them to make the decision? So that's just some food for thought for you to noodle on. But the reality is this is real. And I know you guys have been talking about this all day. And the thing about it seems like just one transition, but I mentioned LifeQuake earlier, which is when multiple transitions happen at one time. And for those coming from the military back into the civilian world, it is both professional and personal. So it's more like a LifeQuake, and it can be very disoriented and isolating for those who have dedicated themselves to service, right? And so the question becomes, though, what if corporate America did operate like the military? What if we were to rethink traditional corporate culture and consider the lessons that we learned from military's approach to teamwork and leadership? And again, this is just food for thought, but the focus again that the military has on trust, a shared mission, sacrifice, if that were applied more in the corporate world, in contrast to like stack rankings and things that may breed competition and silos, just think how that might impact corporate America. And again, flipping the switch, instead of thinking about vets coming into the workplace and helping them transition, which obviously is a need, what if we thought a little bit more about what they could bring to corporate America and into the workplace based on the experiences that they've had? And when that happens, if we start to kind of shift that mindset and think more about how the military has transitioned in general to the change around us, as opposed to how the workplace has, if we did it more like that in the workplace, the outcome is a more connected, resilient, change-ready organization. And the workplace wins because, again, you've got higher engagement and trust. You've got faster adaptation to change, healthier teams with less burnout, more aligned, purpose-driven work, and employees that feel seen, valued, and supported. And this is similar in parallel to what we saw in the military wins, that the military having stronger cohesion, mission-focused, faster decision-making, and greater resilience under pressure, shared identity and belonging, and teams that can navigate uncertainty together. Because at the end of the day, as humans, we are designed for connection and community. And as we think about this in both work and in life, the loneliness epidemic in the world today is at an all-time high. And that's because we are connected through technology, specifically at work, but also when you think about social media and other technologies in life in general, we are a little bit more isolated and siloed when we are designed for community and connection. So bringing this mindset into the workplace as a cornerstone for dealing with transitions, I think could really impact the way that organizations operate and make decisions, and can ultimately be a competitive advantage. And so you as HR professionals have a unique opportunity to what I say, put the human back in human resources and rehumanize the workplace. And that's through really embracing a coaching mindset and connecting veterans, of course, because that's the topic, but employees in general to the resources that they need during transitions, and then catalyzing a culture shift that values trust and empathy. You guys really have the opportunity to be the driving force in helping veterans and all employees navigate, again, this transition, and not just control the process from that top-down change management traditional way of implementing change, but to really empower and guide individuals through this profound personal and professional journey. And so from here, this is my last slide, and I'm just going to highlight some things about what employees need in transition in general, your role as a catalyst, and then some human-centered tool examples. And what I'd like to do after this is is open it up and get your thoughts and even share some best practices that maybe you are implementing in your organization or where you're getting stuck. I think the value of a lot of these conferences is the community it brings in breakouts so that we can learn and grow from each other. So basically, what employees need in transition is clear and honest communication, a safe place to ask questions, consistency from leaders, emotional validation, and that psychological safety to admit when they're in that messy middle, or have the freedom to fail as long as they're learning and growing from it, not using it as an excuse. But also, creating a sense of belonging in the team, and then visibility and transparency into priority and decision making. And your role, obviously, is the catalyst, or the change agent, as the title of this talk is, and really it's creating clarity in those uncertain moments, and build communication rhythms across the organization, and equip leaders with coaching skills to really help meet individuals where they are based on their transition, because we are complex human beings and nobody goes through this the same, which is why instead of managing from a top-down perspective or a process perspective, really inside out coaching, and coaching from the inside out, and equipping leaders with those tools, and holding space for emotional reactions to change, because we are human and the emotional part of it is real, and strengthen the cross-team connection, and making well-being a strategic priority. And then last, I've just listed, just to get juices flowing, some human-centered tool examples. Creating that transition language, like helping people understand the ending, the middle, the beginning. Oftentimes, if we have a common language, it just provides that framework in which to have discussions, to normalize what's happening in the transition, and help people understand that it's okay, that there is a grieving process, there is a messy middle where we may fail ultimately until we can get to that new beginning and that mindset shift. Weekly pulses, pivot check-ins of some form, psychological safety boosters, strengths workshop, working genius mapping, team charters and clarity resets, building transition teams and mentoring programs. So these are just some bullets that I just wanted to throw out there to get the juices flowing. But at this point, I'd love for you guys to come off mute. I'd love your thoughts, any ideas or any best practices that you guys have around helping your organizations adapt to change through helping the people, or the human side of work, to transition. Bueller? Anyone? Jordana, are you still there?
I am here. Sorry. Y'all wrapped up?
Yeah, I don't. So I don't think we have any interest in coming off mute and discussing, but I will say, if anyone has any questions or interested in further discussion, this is my contact information. And then Jordana, I know that there are lounges. If you can point us to a lounge, I'm happy to jump in one if anyone wants to join there for further discussion.
Absolutely. So we'll put you at the transition talk table in the lounge. I'll help you get there, Scott. And anybody who'd like to join and talk with Scott separately, please do.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much for your time today and all of your expertise. It's been amazing.
All right. Thank you, Jordana, and thanks everyone.